All right, podcast number 2. We're here. We're here at Luke's house.
Didn't take you that long to say it?
Yeah, I was trying to rephrase and make sure I was going to say what I wanted to say. But episode 2, Creekside Conversations, we're here at Luke's house. We're going to talk a little bit of turkey, talk about some deer. Luke shot a hammer this year on his farm. And we're just going to have a little chat. So, you fired up to shoot turkeys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Probably a little too fired up and a little jealous right now. Caleb's down in Florida without me. Last year we went together, and this year didn't get to make the trip. Just money and everything else. It's kind of an expensive trip. Not too bad, but just where I'm at right now, I'm not going to be able to make it. So, it sucks.
Yeah, I heard that. I was talking to him and Brian yesterday about going to Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking to Caleb about it, too?
Well, Caleb's not going because he's going to Florida, North Carolina, and, here in West Virginia, and then he's going out to Washington. So, he's not planning on hunting Virginia just because time.
Yeah.
But they were razzing me because it seems like I never go on the trips.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to go to Missouri this year, ended up having to work, but then Dad ended up being in the hospital. And
yeah, that definitely worked out the best for you, though.
Yeah, if I would have been in Missouri when all that happened, hell, you'd have died.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyway, so how many days we can shoot turkeys in West Virginia?
I've got a countdown on my phone, I think. Let me look here. Let's see. It's not right. I punched in the wrong year the last time.
What is today? The 14th. So what, it comes in the 21st?
So 37 days, 9 hours, 35 minutes, and 23 seconds until West Virginia's opener. So it's not that far.
No, not that far at all. You went out this morning listening for turkeys.
Mm-hmm. I did. I try to get out every morning that I can here the last week. One morning I did oversleep, but it's really not hard where I'm at either. I can just step out on my patio and listen, but no, the past few mornings I've been out and I did not hear a confirmed. No, I will say yesterday I did hear a confirmed gobble, but it was very, very, very faint. But today I heard 2 for sure, and they were faint, but like you could still hear them.
Yeah.
Straight that way. I don't even think he was on the property. I think he was down and up the other side.
I gotcha.
But I've been getting pictures of some, though.
Strutting with hands?
Mm-mm.
No?
Nope. Just by themselves. Just onesies and twosies here and there. Now, up until, it's going to sound funny, but up until February 24th, it's like a switch flipped. They're not grouped up anymore. I think they just took the time, they sorted out a pecking order, now they're starting to split up again. So, yeah, I haven't had any pictures of hens in a while. I haven't had, there were 6 longbeards that was running around here all fall. They're not here now. So, every day they made the same loop. They'd start down here or they'd come from over here to these fields and back up. My neighbor would get them on camera, and then they'd come back around the ridge, drop down. They'd go over and they'd roost out on this ridge, and it was just one big loop every day in the fall. But they usually do that about every year here. But I don't know. We'll see about how spring season winds up here. I don't know how much I'm going to hunt here, honestly, at the house. I'm wanting Tanner to get one here before me, so I'm going to give her first pickings around here. And then hop over on some public close to here and all that stuff. So there's usually turkeys over there. So,
well, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. You are Luke Humphreys.
Mm-hmm.
Tell everybody about yourself, how you started hunting.
Man, that's a hard one to even freaking answer, honestly. Well, I go by Luke, and I'm 27 years old, and I started hunting. I don't even remember when I started hunting. I know I was obsessed with squirrel. I was obsessed with deer from the day I was born. My brother was a lot older than me, and he'd bring deer home. And there's some videotapes of me, of Eddie being there with a deer, and me just being absolutely obsessed. And me and Dad would always sit down and we'd watch, there's so many different films we watched. A lot of the Drury series, even Bill Jordan's Real Tree Monster Bucks, all of them. I mean, I can't even sit here and think of all. Primos, we watched Primos, but Dad wasn't a turkey hunter, so we didn't watch the turkey hunting until I was with my brother. But anyways, I started getting out whenever I remember I started bow hunting at 9 years old. Like, I had a bow at 9 years old that would kill a deer. And I was going out, but I never had an opportunity until I was 10. And I killed my first deer. It was October 20th, 2007. I killed my first deer. He's a button buck. And just ever since then, I've been obsessed. But then I killed my first turkey the very next spring. I should have killed one the spring of 2007. So I should have killed my first turkey before I killed my first deer. But that's a long story. But I had a single shot 20 gauge, and he hung up at like 30 yards, and I couldn't shoot him with that. Maybe 35. Had no choke, no nothing. And my brother called it in for me, and I was sitting between his legs. And he said, "See, if you'd have brought my 12 gauge, you could have shot that turkey." He just sat down there and strutted. He had a couple hens. Eddie, my brother, he pulled him up a hill, and he didn't take me for the rest of that year, and I was discouraged. But every day, whenever Mom would pick me up from elementary school at 1:45, I would immediately get in the car. I'd be like, "Did Eddie kill a turkey? Did Eddie kill a turkey?" And she would be like, "I don't know. You'll see when you get home." When I get home, there'd be feathers on one side of the yard, plumb to the other, all the way down in the river. So, because he'd pluck them. So I would always know he'd be at work or something at that point, but I'd always know he got a turkey at that point. But the very next year I killed one. It was 2008, and he called one in, and I shot him. I ended up taking my brother's Mossberg 835 3.5-inch nitro turkey magnums.
10 years old.
10 years old, shot it between my brother's leg. And I was a pitcher at the time. We just started up kind of like a minor league. First year out of, coach pitch when I was playing baseball back then. I remember trying to pitch, and man, my whole shoulder was purple. They thought like my dad grabbed me by my shoulder or something, but it was really just where I shot that 12 gauge that morning. But that's really what set me off. And the turkey mounts in another room, but yeah, I remember him popping up on that knoll and spitting and drumming, and I remember my brother saying, "Can you feel the ground shaking?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Man, he's pretty." He's like, "Yeah, now shoot him." And he was probably 40 yards, but I'd never really ran decoys that much, but Eddie always ran one when he took me, and we only had a lone hen, but he didn't. He had it stashed off to the side, so if he come over the top, he wasn't looking directly at us. There's some stuff blowing in the window there from outside, but the turkey, so he wouldn't be looking directly at us. He made sure to explain that stuff to me, and the decoy was over here, and I think where he was at, he couldn't quite see it. He had it put up on a rotted stump, so you'd think he would have seen it, but I don't think he ever seen a decoy. That's my first two deer. My first deer, my first turkey. That's what really got me hooked. I'm very passionate about those stories, as you can probably tell, because they're what really lit the fire under me. And a little bit more about myself. I'm in the West Virginia Air National Guard. Me and Josh actually work together. So moving up in the ranks there, and hoping to be taking a new job soon, and working on this house, working on this farm. I own a 60-acre piece of land here and a house in Lincoln County, West Virginia. So I'm constantly here doing something, whether it be outside or inside or whatever. I'm trying to get stuff done around here. So
Josh always likes to make fun of him and say that he, when you call him and ask him to do something, he's, I got to sharpen the chainsaw. I got to run the tractor.
I wish the tractor was running right now.
He's joking, but he's always doing something out here. You do quite a bit of land management work out here.
I haven't.
You try to.
I try to. I haven't this year because I've been more torn. Because, see, I've been wanting to do a select cut.
Yeah.
Not really anything too intrusive. And then I was talking to my father-in-law about it. And he was like, well, I'll tell you what. If you're only wanting to take a certain amount of trees and nothing crazy, he's like, well, he's technically my brother-in-law, so it's Tanner's sister's husband. He used to do a lot of logging back in the day, and he really knows what he's doing. And we're thinking about coming up and kind of doing a select cut ourselves. The only problem is, another reason why I want some logging done, I have no roads here. I want some roads built really bad. Because I can't get, like, when you're here at the house, like, obviously I have fields. But, like, once you get off those fields, I have nothing in the bottoms. So if I have shot deer, and they've ran straight to the bottom, and there's no way to get to them. Yeah. I literally have to carry them up the mountain, and it sucks very bad. Plus, I want them for good fire lines, too. So, like, if I want to burn the hillside, I can actually drive my four-wheeler down there with a leaf blower and make a good fire line. And cut my fire line in pretty quick rather than walking across the mountainside trying to do it that way. But I do normally do some TSI. I always get hard on myself because I want to do more, but man, it's just so hard when you're all by yourself. Yeah. So you've got a chainsaw, and I mean, you take one section and you do a hike and squirt, or you do a double girdle, and I don't know. It's kind of time consuming, so I try to do what I can. But I need to do some more. I need to do some burning this year, though, very bad. But here's by the time, heck, it's like the snow melted, and now it's been hot.
Yeah, I mean, it's 75 degrees.
That's warmer than that. It's supposed to be almost 90 today. It's a high of 86 today. It is March the 14th.
Yeah,
I feel like we're in Florida right now with Caleb.
We had snow and a
ice
little bit more
and
snow,
deep freezes.
And now all of a sudden it's just hot, which is great. I mean, after you come out of that cold weather, we don't have winters like what we just had very often. But
normally pretty mild. You get one good week or two of like winter weather normally here the last 10 years or so, 15 years it seems like. And then this year's just different. It was a different trend. Winter came this year with something to prove or something.
Yeah. I was hoping it was going to help with ticks, but I've already found something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
all the people were raving, oh, okay, well, this ice has one benefit to it. Maybe the bugs won't be so bad.
No.
I've already killed like 10 wasps in the house.
Yep.
Because we keep the windows open a lot during the day here recently. Keep it good and fresh.
So you got turkeys out front. Mm-hmm. You got pet turkeys.
Mm-hmm. Can you hear them?
Yeah, I can hear them. I don't think they can hear them, but I can hear them. I got the window open. There's turkey out there. Yacht, yacht, yacht. So you're, thinking about getting into some type of competition calling. Mm-hmm. You ever practice with the turkeys?
Mm-hmm. Every day.
You just sit there and try to imitate that turkey outside?
Mm-hmm. Well, both those hens sound a lot alike. They surprise me sometimes, and I say they sound alike. One's super throaty and the other one's really not, but they're always on the same cadence. They never really get after it unless it's in the morning. But that's the sucky thing. I'm out here trying to hear gobblers, and my hens are going absolutely bananas outside. And and honestly, I'm surprised they haven't gotten anything gobbling. And I know they'll call a gobbler in here this year, 100%. They'll call a gobbler in the yard. Josh always makes fun of me because I'm usually in here in my hunting room. This is my hunting room, and I have so much stuff stuffed in here. But anyways, normally I'm in here practicing because, like Lucas just mentioned, I've been toying with the thoughts of a calling competition the past few years, honestly, and that really stemmed from a long time ago. That brings me back into another story. if anybody's listening to this podcast, they might know Chris Walls. Well, Chris is one of my idols from way back. Chris is from southern West Virginia, which, we're south central, southwest West Virginia, almost, right in the tri-state area. But Chris and my brother worked together a long time ago, and Chris is he still to this day judges Grand National calling competitions in Nashville every year, normally the friction division, but and announces it. I mean, he doesn't judge him. I think he's judged him at some point, but he's big time. Back in the day, especially, he did some natural voice competitions. He did some. I think he was in the Senior Open the first year that he was like, I think I have a shot at winning this. Matt Van Sice came along, and if anybody's listening to this and they know who Matt Van Sice is, he's the god of turkey calling in today's world. Back in the day it was Paul Butsky, and there's a couple more I could name off, but Matt is like the king. He's got 9 Grand National champions under his belt, and right about the time Chris was like, I might actually win this thing this year, Matt came along. And he started whipping up on everybody. But, Chris really lit that fire under me a long time ago. He would come around, and back when I was a kid, I had a really good natural voice call to, just without a call in my mouth, just natural. I had a really good one, actually. And then once I hit puberty, it went out the window. I can't do it anymore. But, Chris was always like, man, I need to get you in the youth division natural voice calling competition. I'm telling you, you'll win it. You'll win it. And I never did it, and I wish I would have, looking back. But yeah, I've been actually, me and Chris, it's funny you mentioned it, me and Chris were literally just talking about it, I think last night, about some stuff. He's giving me some pointers and talking, so hopefully I can make that happen. Actually, there's one May 10th in Minnie, Kentucky that I'm thinking about going and competing in. Then actually the Kentucky State Championship is August 2nd in Pikeville. That just got posted. I looked at it last night and it wasn't there. And then today I was pulling up looking at our banquet tomorrow, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to see if West Virginia added any more events or any more calling events, if there was any for the all states. And because it seems like it'll only load out so many days. So it's like, once I scrolled down and refreshed the page, it populated like 3 new contests. And one of them is the Kentucky in Pikeville, and I think it's August 2nd. So that one will be a tough one, though, because you got a lot of good callers in Kentucky.
Yeah. Southern West Virginia, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll draw a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, you like turkeys or deer better? If you had to pick, what would you pick?
Well, I won't answer that just quite yet. They both give me different feelings almost. I'm gonna answer with turkey though, because turkey is like an everyday, it's eventful thing. Deer hunting is a grind, buddy, especially around here. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
Turkey hunting normally every day you go out in West Virginia, you are going to have some type of adventure. And I'm not saying you won't with deer hunting too, but I'm just saying, like, more times than not, you're going to have more action turkey hunting. I think anybody listening to this podcast could agree with that. But, deer hunting is more of a feeling of, like, turkey hunting is obviously an accomplishment too, but, like, a lot of times when you're hunting a big buck like the one I'm looking at right now, this one, when you hunt him for 4 years, you don't hunt a gobbler normal for 4 years, but you hunt something like this for 4 years, and you only see him 2 times with your own eye.
Tell us about that deer.
Well, I feel like I've done all the talking right now.
Well, yeah, you're talking a lot, but I'm asking you questions.
That's true.
I mean, I know he's Bobby Fischer.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been hunting him for 4 years.
Yeah.
I know you shot him with your grandpa's flintlock. I mean, but you got a story.
Mm-hmm. A long story, though.
I mean, what are we doing? You got somewhere to go?
No. Nope. So, yeah, Lucas pretty much brought me into telling the story right off the get-go almost. But So the story of this buck started in 2021. He was a small, well, I really wouldn't say he was small. He was 100, maybe 110 inch 10 point. And so in 2021, he showed up and he was probably 100, 110 inch 10 point. His frame was nice. He was sort of spindly, but he always had this left brow tine was always longer than his right. Like as long as I've ever known this deer. I've always known it was him on trail camera because of the mismatched brow tine. Always. So I didn't really pay much attention to him. I knew he made it through the 2021 season. Well, 2022 shows up, and I really wasn't. I was just waiting on a decent buck to show up on camera to hunt, and I assumed the buck that he was a 3-year-old buck the year before, and he may have been 115. Honestly, thinking back at it, because he had longer brow tines than he does now when he was young. Sort of. It was probably that long on one
That
side.
one's short. Is that a scoreable point?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. But 2022 rolled around. He come in. He turned into a really nice 9 point, probably 130 inch 9 point, maybe somewhere between 100 and 135. And he put on some mass and he put on some beam length. I mean, and by the time 1st of November rolled around, he was freaking burly. And I was feeding, but he hadn't hit the feed at all until November the 4th, I think he showed up that year, and he was a freaking pig. I was like, this dude's eating corn. He's got to be eating corn somewhere else. I mean, I know he was eating acorns, but man, he was freaking fat. So that's what led me to believe he was 4 years old, just because of how big and burly he was.
I mean, how long is that right side too?
It's 13 and a half, I think. Maybe almost 14.
I mean, that's a tank of a West Virginia deer. That's a tank of a deer anywhere you go.
He ended up scoring right at 158. He's also got that flyer kicker too for the people who are listening to this. He's got a flyer kicker off his G2 as well. And I think, don't quote me on it, I think it's almost 4 inches because of that bend right there. Mm-hmm. Don't really look 4 inches, but it's got a big kick in it. But he didn't develop that till this year. But 2022 rolls around, and I swear to you, I mean, I could have swore the way he was showing up, I was gonna kill him pretty quick. He's being dumb, very dumb. And he did kind of catch on to me sort of quick, but like I would give him 3 days break, and it's like I'd never hunted the deer before again. He was just right back on it. And it just seemed like any time I played something on him, man, he just had my ticket. And the only time in 2022 I think I seen him, and I really don't know for sure because it was low light. I was hunting in this big bowl, and man, he just come flying down the hillside after a doe, and it was raining. I mean, it was pouring rain. It was November the 12th that year, and he was dogging a doe coming down the hill, and man, he was not even looking at me, and all of a sudden he just locked him up. I was just sitting still. I was waiting for him to get behind a tree or something before I stood up. I wasn't filming nothing. I was just looking at him. He was flying down the hill right toward me, and he locked him up and put on the brakes, and he just, it's like he stared into my soul from 100 yards away. But the only thing was there was 2 bucks in here that looked pretty identical. Only the difference was he was a 9 and there was an 8. They didn't have mismatched brow tines, but their frame was the same. But where it was low light, it could have been either one of them. I don't know. And man, he just went right back up the hill. He went, and I noticed that he started coming in different ever after that. So I'm pretty sure it was him, but I can't say for sure. And then he disappeared on December 1st that year. I did not get another picture of him until September 15th, 2023. Gun season wasn't even out yet in 2022, and he left. Last picture I had of him was pretty much in a yard right here. I had a bunch of does coming into the field right here, I had a picture of him on a cell cam coming in at like 4 o'clock that evening. And a lot of times he was crossing his point. He was coming down this bowl over here. And I thought he was going to go that way. So I got home from work and I just grabbed my rifle and some camo and I dumped over the hill right here below the chicken coop and was waiting for him to come. There's a big giant bench that runs down the bottom of that bowl. And I thought he was going to cruise that bench. He didn't. And then come to find out maybe a week later, gun season wasn't out. I ended up checking my camera up here in the yard, and he come up through this thicket below the barn right at dark. And he chased the doe across the top of the point, went over on the neighbors this way. That was the last picture I had of him that year. And gun season was still in, 4 or 5 days still left in the season, I think, that at that point. So I thought he got shot. I was like, well, he's gone, because how consistent he was. He was always there, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward September 15th, 2023, me and Caleb were hunting together in the urban hunt in Charleston. And my phone goes off. I had a cell camera on this giant community scrape I found summer scouting on a south-facing slope about 700 yards from here, 600 yards from here. And he showed up on it probably an hour after daylight, after shooting light, he showed up. And he was with 3 other bucks and a big bachelor group. He come in and just absolutely mangled the scrape. And I was like, oh, man, there he is. And you could tell it was him from the mismatched brow tines. That's what gave it away. Plus, the way his G4s lay a certain way, too. I don't know if you can tell it frontal like yet, but his G4s had always been like that.
Like kind of crab claw. Like that.
Yeah. Super crabby. That other big buck I killed a few years ago, his G4 straight. Mm-hmm. But, anyway, I ended up going on a scouting trip on September the 19th. I went scouting, and wasn't far into my scouting, out toward that camera. I was walking with the wind in my face. I had everything just the way I needed it. And I could hear acorns, and you hear a lot of people talking about this, and I never really believed them until this point. They say you can hear acorns dropping more profoundly in this one spot than, let's say, this mountainside over here. Mm-hmm. It sounds silly, but I heard that before. Maybe it was Dan Infalt, or maybe it was Jake Bush. I can't remember who said it, but I remember hearing it at one point. I was like, you know what? I'm going to check it. That's on the leeward side of the hill. I wonder if there ain't something over there eating right now. I'm just going to pop up over this knoll with my binoculars ready. And who knows? He might be standing down there. And I just real easy crept up over that bank. Well, there was a doe, not even at 10 yards. She was standing there. She caught me like that, obviously. So she takes off. She had no baby, no bot, nothing with her. I was like, that was pretty weird. About that time, he stood up out of his bed at like 60 yards from me and took off running. And I knew it was him immediately because he's the biggest buck in the area by a long shot. And that was the only time I laid eyes on him in 2023 was when I was scouting him. And he was a really hard buck to hunt in 2023 because the rut from 2022 and the rut to 2023 were 2 completely different ruts for him. 2022, he was here all the time. 2023, he was a ghost. I never had a first picture of him from November 3rd till November 30th.
Where do you think he went?
No idea. Not a clue.
Talk to any of your neighbors?
There's one neighbor. I ended up actually talking to him 2 weeks after I killed this buck. He ended up reaching out to me, said he had pictures of him, and he actually missed him in gun season in 2023.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he's way down the ridge this way.
Like a couple miles?
No, probably close to a mile and some change. It's 3 property owners over. Mm-hmm. And he ended up missing him, and he told me, he said he went to shoot at him. He wasn't super far away, and I guess when he pulled up, his scope looked good, but his barrel was underneath the edge of the blind. He shot the blind.
Man, that sucks.
Mm-hmm. Good for me, but...
Oh, yeah. It sucks for him, though.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, ended up keeping him around a lot last year. I had a natural spring. We didn't have a whole lot of snow last year, and I have a natural spring. I have a mineral site right above it, and he kept hitting that mineral. I was feeding him too, but man, it seemed like he was on that mineral a lot last year, more than ever. He was hitting that mineral, and he was coming across. He'd come up and he'd hit that spring, and he would come right up the top and hit that mineral, and then come on down and walk straight down the ridge past the cabin and all that when he'd leave that night. So I had him sort of patterned where I could pick up his sheds. And, man, I walked. He ended up dropping. I had a cell camera. I had a picture of him on February 26th at 9:50 at night. He had both sides. He come in on February 27th. Both sides are gone. At like 7 o'clock in the evening. He come in. Both sides are gone. He come walking straight up out of this big ravine. So I was like, well, I know where to go look.
Yeah.
Man, I spent, it was, I think, 67 miles I walked. And I mean, you know, I've got this property and I've got a little bit of a neighbor's property is all I've got. And then there's like a little sliver right over here of some unmarked stuff. I can't even find out who owns it on Onyx is what it said. Like you pull it up and there's nobody that owns it.
Yeah.
Somebody probably does, I'm sure, but it's just not on there. But anyways, I don't have a whole lot of ground to work with. 67 miles. If he dropped in that vicinity, then he didn't drop it. There's no way I walked across those sheds.
67 miles, like that's.
And you're not gonna. And I find. I want to get in front of your camera here. This is my only sheds and match set this year. And you're going to tell me I missed a 160-inch deer antler laying in the...
Do you think somebody beat you to it?
No. I think, here is my philosophy, where he walked in from that night. If you hit that south-facing slope and walk low, it's nothing but ravines. Nothing but ravines. I think he dropped him in one of those ravines. We had a absolute frog washer the next day. I'm talking like heavy, heavy, heavy rain. Like stop your culverts up with beach leaves kind of rain. I think they got washed down into a big leaf pile and never found them. I don't think anybody found them. I mean,
if they did,
there's only one person that would have beat me to him, and I think it was Well Tender. And I don't think he would have done that. Yeah. Personally, I mean, he could have, but I don't think he did.
Yeah.
Because when I showed him this, he was very surprised. Because he came up and had to do some stuff not that long ago, and I showed it to him. I was like, now you know why I texted you and asked you when you were always coming back up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, and you got through all 20, and beginning part of 2024, he vanished on March 22nd. That was the most he's ever hung around. But I was keeping him fed good. Well, March 22nd to October 7th, I never had a picture of him, and I had some cameras scattered. Well, he shows up October 7th, and I knew not to pressure him. I said, based off last year's, pattern, and just, past year's pattern, I said, I know where I need to be mid-October, and I don't need to mess this up. I don't need to be going out in there and screwing this up. Like, I need to take this seriously. So I waited for a cold front, and I waited for the right wind. And I got in there that evening. It was October the 14th, and we had a steady drop in temperature. And a cold front was blowing in, but the wind was going to die down by that evening. I said, it's going to be the right evening to go. And I had a spot in mind. I went in. It was what I've learned from other people talking about. They call them an inside corner, and it's pretty much where nothing could get downwind of me unless it walked through an absolute, like the bottom of the steepest drain that you can find. Like my wind was blowing off in that, so there's nothing that was going to catch me unless my wind drifted up the mountain. And he literally came exactly where I thought he would. He popped out of nowhere at 50 yards. Like, I didn't hear him. I didn't see him. He was just there at 50 yards. And I was looking at him, and obviously, I knew it was him. Obviously, he's the biggest buck around. And I was trying to figure out which way he was going to go. because he had 2 trails he could have walked. He could have walked one that came literally 15 yards underneath of me, or there was another one that was going to bring him out at 38, was the closest shot with a lane in it. And he walked that high road at 38 yards. And he was walking, and I stood up, and I drew my bow, and he come into that lane, and I went to stop him, and he took 2 or 3 steps past it and stopped. So I am obviously a nervous wreck at this point. I've got the biggest buck in my sight housing, but I can't shoot an arrow. And he stands there for a long time. And I can't, like, where he's at, there's a bunch of beach brush. And I can't exactly focus on, like, him. I can only see, like, a little bit of white and, like, a little bit of something else. Well, then I'll lose it because it's starting to get dark. And at this point, I'm already let back down, waiting for him to keep walking. And he stood there forever, and finally I pulled my binoculars up, and I looked, and I could see his antlers. He was feeding on acorns. Finally, what I could, like, once I seen that, I could hear what I was seeing. I could hear him munching on acorns. Well, then about the time that processed, I lost him again, and all of a sudden I realized he was turned and walking back the way he came. I was like, oh crap. So I drew, and he was going to come back through that original lane at 38. And by the time I got back to my anchor point and was going to stop him, he was right where he needed to be. And I went, Matt, same deal. He went 2 or 3 steps and stopped. And at this point, he's looking down the hill. Like, he's not looking at me, but he's looking down the hill. He has no idea what's going on. And then it really starts to get dark, and I completely lose him. And all of a sudden, like, I heard a twig snap. I look, and he's about to step into that 50-yard opening again. And in that 50-yard opening is like a big clearing in the canopy. So there's a bunch of light coming through there. So he's pretty much like a silhouette right there. And I still had shooting light, like legal shooting light. I clicked my sight light on, and I got back almost a full draw, and he turned and just started walking directly away from me. He had no idea I was there. He was not spooked. He just,
Yeah.
It's like he just walked out there, ate a few bites of acorns
and left.
Gone. So I think you and Caleb were coming back from Ohio that evening, and I called you all.
Yeah.
I was walking back, and man, I was a freaking emotional wreck.
Yeah.
And it really lit a fire under me for the next, well, that was October 14th, and it was almost 3 months? It was 3 months, almost 3 months by the time I killed him.
So let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
You guys go to Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are out chasing deer there.
Mm-hmm.
This is, Josh is telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
But you go out, you shoot a great buck in Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and you're sitting there and stuck in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby shows up.
Mm-hmm. All the time.
I mean,
I shot. So he wasn't showing up a whole lot, and at least in the daylight, until I shot that buck November 6th. And he freaking, I swear it's like as soon as I shot that buck, he started showing up. Because November 7th, November 8th, and November 9th, he daylighted 4 times in 3 days. I couldn't believe it. So he gets away from me. I go to Missouri. I think we already talked about that. So I come back from Missouri. We got back the night of the 9th. Well, we got back, it was sort of late, but it wasn't bad. Like, we didn't get back till like 11. I think I got home at 11:30, almost 11:30. So by the time I, like, got my bow out of the truck, got all my stuff in here, like, got a couple things in the washer, because, we weren't able to wash stuff out there, so I was absolutely disgusting.
right. It's like 3 guys sleeping in a camper together.
4.
Plus, 4 guys sleeping in a camper. I forgot about Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Plus Cole showing up every night.
Drinking beer.
Yeah, I bet you all were disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and take a real shower, too.
Yeah, which is probably nice.
Yes.
Better than a horse bath.
Yep. So, it was, it was almost It's almost 2:30, I think, by the time I got to lay down. And I had all intentions on going hunting the next morning. I was like, I don't care, rain or shine. Doesn't matter. I'm going hunting. I'm going to hunt the water hole up top, or I'm going to hunt the blind and the food plot. It's like either one. Don't matter. They both got a good wind. But I was like, I'm leaning more toward the water hole because I'm just waiting for the day to him cruise by up there, coming across the top. And sure enough, I ended up sleeping in because I felt like I needed it. And it costed me. He walked right underneath my tree stand that morning at the water hole at like 8:50 in the morning. He wouldn't have winded me either. The way I had that stand set up, the wind was blowing perfect right over the top, down the other side. Yeah, it sucked pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened again on November 22nd. It happened again on December 1st.
When you say it happened again, you mean you didn't go and he walked by, or
No,
you were just in the wrong spot?
I was in the wrong spot. Honestly, November 21st, he was within bow range of me the last few minutes of daylight, and I didn't know it. It's kind of like long and drawn out a way to explain it, but pretty much I ended up checking a trail camera a few days later, actually almost a week later. I checked a trail camera that's in the bottom of this bowl, and I had a picture of him with like 8 minutes of shooting light left, running away from me, which it's funny because he was running back the way he came, and it had been raining all day that day, and we had snow that night. That's when Josh shot that 7-point. I had a picture of him in a scrape that morning over here and over here, so he was all over the place. I knew he was cruising somewhere. I knew I'd catch him at some point if I was in the right spot that day. And Josh shot that buck, and I ended up hunting a different stand that night, and it costed me. And he walked right past the tree I was in that morning, and I dropped my bow out of that morning.
Yep.
I was all flustered about that. And then that evening, like I said, he cruised all the way up through the field, and I didn't know this till later, though. So I knew about him walking, because it was not a cell cam. I knew about him walking past my tree that night the next day, because I went out and hunted that tree the next day. Well, then this brings me back to a week later, almost a week later, sometime during gun season. I checked that camera in the bottom of that bowl, and I guess what happened was, because I'd spooked a couple deer right at last light and didn't know it. There were some does that had moved in from the food plot down through that thick stuff and was standing there, and I didn't know it because I was watching. There was an 8-point, a spike, and a doe right here, and I was watching them. They were kind of like going back and forth after her, and I was watching them, and then all of a sudden, like, I went to itch something on the back of my neck, and when I did, I spooked some deer behind me. I thought these 3 deer were the only deer around me. I was just like real easy. I just reach up there and itch like that. Well, then a slew of deer took off out of all that thick stuff, and you can't really see through it very well. It's pretty thick right there, and they just took off toward the long field, and I was like, I just like added fuel to the fire of the day. Like, dropped my bow and spooked a bunch of deer. Like, here we are, it's crunch time. I'm running deer off my property right before gun season. Like, I'm not happy about it.
No.
So, yep, come to find out, that camera was like 45 yards from my tree, and he was running from there, and the deer that I seen bust out of there were like 20 yards. So he had to have been within bow range at some point. I just didn't know it. I know that's probably bad to admit on camera, but like, you just had to have been there that evening. Like, it was super blustery. Like, I remember texting my brother, I was like, it's very dangerous to even be in the woods right now. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. I was like, but I can't skip. I can't do it. It's like spitting rain, or snowing, spitting sleet, and snowing, rain.
I think I remember that day.
And dude, I'm hunting out of a little lock-on limb. Has the carpet on the platform. It's a cheap stand, and it's like 40 feet in the tree, Dave Miller style. I'm up there in a saddle, like hanging out of my saddle so I can swing around it easier. Yeah. Like, I have a lot of tension on it. Yeah, and dude, that poplar tree was absolutely rocking. But he got away from me then. December 1st wasn't more so he got away from me, just in the wrong spot. Yeah. My brother actually told me to hunt somewhere up near the top that evening. I was like, nope, I'm going down low, and it costed me. Yeah. Then November 30th, actually, too. November 30th and December 1st. Both wrong spots.
I got to start hunting again in December. Dad got out of the hospital, and I had a lot of my target buck, Kurt Bush. He daylighted. He was daylighting in late November, and he hadn't really put on a pattern at all. And late November, it was like every second day, he was walking past this patch of red oaks that were dropping. And the first time I was like, oh, look at that. And the second time I was like, oh man, he came back again. That's wild. Like, he hadn't been in the same place in 2 days, like, ever. And, 2 days later,
does it again.
And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's on a pattern. Which, ended up not working out for me. But I know what you mean.
A lot of people hunting there, though.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that, late November this year, it seemed like that I had a lot of deer up high versus down low. And I know a lot of what you hear is, high in the mornings, low in the evenings. But I know that that's a thermal thing. But I had a lot of deer up high in the evenings in December this year.
Yep. But then I had nothing really pressing. I know he daylighted the day after bow season went out. I felt like he was taunting me. And then my brother talked me into taking, my grandpa handed down my brother Thompson Center. There's a 50 caliber Thompson Center White Mountain carbine side lock muzzleloader. And it is legal for the Mountaineer Heritage season, whereas in like places like Pennsylvania, it has to be a flintlock. This is a percussion cap gun. Just can't have a scope on it or anything. It's just a straight iron sight side lock muzzleloader. And it hadn't been fired in almost 20 years. It's been sitting in my mom and dad's house. My brother moved out and didn't even take it with him. It's just been sitting there in a gun cabinet. And I went and got it, and it wouldn't shoot at first. I couldn't even get like a paper clip through the nipple that your percussion cap goes on. There's something gunked up in there. I let it soak for like 12 hours, and I finally got a paper clip to shove through. Just a bunch of gunk that had just rusted and like fused in, I guess. I don't know how it did it, but finally broke loose, and I let everything dry. I let that nipple dry out, and then I shot it accurate. 40 yards like that. Hit it perfect. And I was like, well, good. And then my brother's like, look, that gun is very, very, very dirty. I don't think I cleaned it when I put it up. Like, you're going to have to clean that thing, like, without a doubt. It's like, well, I have no idea. Well, he explained me how to clean this thing. So I got it all clean. Everything was good to go. I went and got some more ammo and some powder. Everything was good. And I went and shot it. And it was an absolute nightmare. I was all over the place on that cardboard, and ended up getting something out of it. I figured out that when you're using these speed loaders, it was taking too much of the bore grease off of those Buffalo bullets. So it was taking a lot of that grease. It wasn't giving enough spin when it was coming out of the barrel. So it shoots super low at like 60 yards. Like so low that like it's alarming.
Yeah.
Like a foot low.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So once I stopped using those speed loaders, I started shooting better. Started shooting a little higher, actually. Like higher than what I was aiming at. Like I was shooting probably that high, 50, 60 yards. I was like, well, I can work with that. So I ended up going hunting out almost every day. I tried to go every day of the Mountaineer Heritage season, which is a 4-day season. It's Thursday through Sunday, January 9th through 12th. And I went out and hunted. I tried to go the 9th, but there were literally so many deer trying to get where I was going. It was like impossible. I was trying to still hunt my way there, and I couldn't. The woods had all kinds of snow. That was right after we had that ice storm. It was super crunchy. There was no way I was sneaking up on anything. So I actually had to back out that evening. I was like, I got to get in there early or something. I got to make a plan. And there was just deer feeding everywhere. Like, didn't matter where. They were just like in random places. And long story short, I hunted him until the 12th with no sightings, obviously. And then the morning of the 12th, I had a picture of him leaving, going back out toward this point. And it's like, oh, I ought to pick up his track. So I tracked him for a long ways, and I got to where I last had a picture of him. Tracked him way out through there. I tracked him all the way to a bed, and then pretty much there was like 2 sets of tracks leaving the bed, which didn't make any sense, but I think I figured out what happened was he went down below, and I ended up running into a buck that he runs with, bedded on that same south-facing slope. And I made a move on him in hopes that he was with him, but he wasn't. What ended up happening, I think, is I was too late. I think he went down below me. As I was moving out the mountain this way, I think he went like this, under, to catch thermals.
Yeah.
But, like, the thermals weren't quite dropping yet by the time he started moving. But by the time he got closer and closer, this way, they would. Where he would need them to matter the most. So what I ended up doing was getting all the way out in front of him. I got way high on the mountain and got in front of him and set up on the trail that I thought he would move in on. And just so happened, I looked up with 7 minutes of the season left. I looked up, and there he was. He was in all his glory. There he was. I couldn't believe it. He come up out of the bottom of this like ravine where there's some down red oaks that had fell this year. And I noticed there was a lot of feeding sign down there earlier in the year. He come out from below those, and he come up the side of the ravine. And when he did, I already had the ball on him, ready to rock. But then he come behind a bunch of trees, and he jumped across a couple logs. And then he just made his way down the other side and came back up. And he was facing me at, I don't know, 20, 25 yards. And I put the bead on him. And I aimed as low as I could on his brisket, and I popped it off, and he dropped in his tracks. And I mean, I was an emotional roller coaster. And for those who have followed Turkey Creek Productions, I really haven't filmed a whole lot of deer hunting, and I had everything filmed up to this point on my GoPro. I didn't even take my camcorder out that day. It was all on GoPro. And the last time I'd sat down when I was making a trek in on him, I looked at my GoPro and it said, I think, like 9% or something like that. And it was cold. It was like 28 degrees that day.
9% on the GoPro, it's dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone.
It's dead.
So then I ended up making the shot 20, 25 minutes later, and I tried to hit the side button, and nothing even happened. So I don't have any part of the shot or anything. So I think Josh has a little bit of the recovery with him, but like by that point, heck, I'd already moved him a little bit and everything else. So
yeah.
I don't know. We may end up doing something with it. We may not. But, yeah, I was absolutely thrilled. I ended up getting the bullet out of him, out of his gut pile.
That's what I thought was incredible.
Yeah, I've done that so many times now. I don't even know how.
I mean,
it's
you go back, what, a day later, 2 days later?
3,
and you just start sifting through stomach matter, and, I mean, you just find it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, incredible. I hung him up, and I knew where I'd hit him and how much of an angle I had, and I had no exit.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere.
Right.
Not in the bottom of the belly, where he was down the hill from me at like a steep angle. So I knew if it didn't exit anywhere down through here, there had to be somewhere in it.
In him, yeah.
So I looked all through the rib cage bones, nothing. He wouldn't lodge nowhere in the skin, nothing. So I was like, it's got to be in that gut pile out there. Well, at this point, the gut pile was like all but gone except for the stomach matter.
Yeah.
And I just looked right on top. There it was laying.
That's incredible.
I couldn't believe it. It was crazy.
That's a great story. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of time to hunt a single deer.
Mm-hmm.
And, him not get killed. That, a lot of issue with hunting deer, and small parcel properties is they get killed so quick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody hunts, you know.
Just like that pretty buck at your house this year.
Yeah, I mean, I had a nice buck over at my house. It what did it have, a split G2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Neighbor shot it.
Yep.
My grandma had fell, and they'd taken her to the hospital. And I was going to pick her up, take her back home, and I saw a bunch of trucks parked down by his house, and I thought, oh man, I bet he shot that deer. And about 2 days later, I go down. I planted a terrible food plot that did absolutely nothing. But I went down a couple days later, and the guy dropped the carcass in my plot, which he thought was on his property. You know, he's a Barbersville police officer, and I went and talked to him, and I was like, hey, you know, and you know, he was really apologetic. He showed me the rack, and I mean, it's a beautiful deer. I mean, nice 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wasn't anything quite like that. Or I was on the fence back and forth on whether I was going to shoot him. I probably wouldn't have, but then you start thinking about, but to the point, you know, it's incredible that that guy missed him.
This place gets crazy amount of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story.
There's no public nowhere around here, but it doesn't matter, because like when you're in West Virginia, you're in places like, everybody hunts in like West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, like all those places get absolutely hammered on private property. You can't go nowhere where nobody's not hunting. No. So you've got 100-some acres right here where 4 people hunt it from October to January every year. Yep. Same way right here. Same way over here. Like, there's all kinds of people that hunt.
I mean, even on our farm in Lincoln County, I mean, there's people who, you know, hunt our farm.
Mm-hmm. And if you told them you owned it, they'd probably be like, well,
I've been hunting here 40 years.
I've been hunting here for, yeah.
You know, 25 years old, been hunting here 40. My family been hunting here 40 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those guys out who hunt on us, they're good guys. We know them. Properties joined together.
Mm-hmm.
But, all right, well, let's shift back to turkeys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What, you know, I asked Caleb this. The other day. What do you think about decoys? What do you think about decoying turkeys?
Well, it's obviously a very hot topic of today's turkey world, isn't it?
It seems like everybody's talking about it, and either you love it or you hate it.
Well, you've seen Michael Waddell going absolutely berserk on Instagram. I don't know if you've seen any of his posts or not, but he's going crazy right now.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because people have been calling him out and stuff, which, I mean, you know. I just think I think the point a lot of people are trying to make on, which I guess I can go down both sides, because I see both opinions. Decoys in general I don't have a problem with. It's the fanning.
The reaping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, in my humble opinion, I just don't think there's enough turkeys right now that need to be, like, people are murdering turkeys.
Yeah.
Like, people are limiting out on their turkeys because they're using a fanning decoy. Like, it's that you go out into this big giant field, you throw a decoy down, and both the turkeys that were not paying attention to your calls because they're in this wide open field are literally running at you now, and you shoot them in the face. Like, those turkeys would have just kept on walking if you didn't have a fanning decoy. I don't know if that's 100% right for me to say, but I just think with the problems with turkey decline, I think it needs to be at least looked at. I get it, it's legal, and that's fine. If that's the way you want to hunt and it's legal, you go ahead. But I think you ought to reconsider it. That's my opinion. Because turkeys are not doing well in the United States. They are in some places, and West Virginia really isn't seeing too much of a... We have seen some decline, but not like some states. Some states have seen substantial amount of decline. Like you look at Arkansas, you look at Louisiana, places like that are just getting absolutely gutted with their turkey numbers, and they're trying to bring it back. And then you got somebody out there with a strutting decoy in a 500-yard field, and they just come flying across it. That's my thing. And then you look at Waddy's opinion, and he's saying, if it's legal means, you go right ahead. And you can't agree with that either. It's the law,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's hard to disagree with. I mean, if it's legal to do, it's the same thing, to dip into that can of worms. It's the same thing as, crossbows. My neighbor shot that deer with a crossbow.
If he didn't have a crossbow, he would have shot a deer.
I don't think he was on his back porch. He has a blind set about 20 yards from his back porch. But he shot that buck 20 yards from his house in a blind off a feed pile with a crossbow. To each their own. It's legal. Completely legal. That's not how I would have done it. It's not how I would like to do it.
Yeah. I just that's the whole concept of both. That's the whole concept of both subjects here is what's the level of ethicality about it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Crossbows, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not ethical. I think the people who use them can be unethical about using them. But that's with any weapon, too, at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do believe people stretch the limits of those crossbows.
Oh, absolutely.
They think, there's a deer 120 yards through the woods. Oh, this thing's got it. Wham.
Well, I'll tell you, I've pulled a crossbow straight out of the box, thrown a scope on it, shot it at 20, shot it at 50, tuned the scope a little bit, and then, shot it at 100. And you're hitting with a pie plate at 100, 3 shots. And I'd never shot a crossbow in my life.
Yeah.
And, I know you do too. I mean, we practice with our compound bows. But then you have the same thing with the compound bows as you do the long bows. People who say, well, you're shooting compound bows. I mean, that's no different than a crossbow. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, I think a crossbow is essentially a gun that, doesn't fire. But I can see the argument, and I can see the argument that Waddy's making. It's legal. Why would I not do it? If I can get a turkey to run it, because I mean, the adrenaline that you probably get, I've never reaped a turkey, but the adrenaline you probably get, having that turkey run full bore at you, just pissed, ready to come whoop your ass. I bet you're shaking like a leaf. I bet it's an adrenaline rush like you've probably never had.
And it could be for some people, and that brings us into the next part of it. I just don't think it would be for me. And that's what people are going to get all upset about, because they're like, well, just because it isn't for you doesn't mean it's not, not for John Smith. You know what I mean? I don't know who John Smith, John Doe.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're getting at.
That's where the whole argument gets really twisted. And my thing is just like, it's an ethicality thing. Like, there's no hunt in it. And I just wish people would reevaluate it, especially with the turkey numbers. That's my thing. If the turkeys weren't so bad off, you go right ahead. But in a lot of places, turkeys are hurting really, really, really badly. Yeah. And then you have people who come in from out of state. Well, I'll just take my strutter decoy and get my chasing 49. I'm chasing 49. I'll just take my strut decoy and kill a turkey in every state with it. Or I'll just take a fan out in the woods with me and just keep fanning until turkey season. He comes running at me like, I don't know. I feel guilty for going out of state and turkey hunting sometimes. I really do. Because there's places that just don't need to have turkeys killed by people more than the people that already live there. Really.
Which, takes us into Florida. Me and Caleb also talked about Florida the other day and how, their regulations are getting ready to change.
Big time.
You were trying to draw a quota this year. You were sitting waiting to figure out if you got drawn. You didn't. But, they're getting ready to change the quota hunts to where it's 90 resident, 10 non-resident. I mean, they're getting ready to raise prices of license. He thinks from the first time he went down there, he said the WMA he went to, there were about 800 people. And I believe he's told me you have to sign in. So it's kind of
the WMA he went to, and everybody can look at it on Onyx, so I really don't care to even name drop it. Everybody knows everything in Florida if they're interested in Florida turkey hunting. It was Green Swamp.
Okay.
There's 200 first come first serve permits to hunt there. And when he said 800, that could be because there was four people in each truck or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Just like he was trying to get me to go down. He's like, well, Green Swamp's first come first serve, 200 permits. I'm sitting there thinking, I understand Green Swamp's big, but like, holy crap, like it's wild. Like there's another one that's 40. Like that's a little bit more feasible, but it's a lot smaller.
Yeah, harder. Yeah, if it's anything like Arkansas duck hunting, people are lined up the night before.
They are.
Just
they
waiting.
Are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he thinks that it's going to bring the turkey numbers up, that the price changes and
100%. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 100% what Florida FWC is doing. That they're not doing it for the hell of it. They're doing it because they know that they have a turkey number crisis. Because you got to think, number one, doesn't matter what state you're in, every turkey is being hunted 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're at, but especially Florida.
Yeah. Everything's trying to kill everything in Florida.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is trying to kill everything in Florida.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they just have a really tough time.
I had a trail camera set out in the woods. It was probably 2 years ago. I had a camera set out, and I had it out for deer, but it was February, and I remember in particular it was February 21st because it had snowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 3 strutters on that camera. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but I went down there, pulled the camera, and I had seen a pile of feathers, like something killed a turkey. And a bobcat got a hold of a turkey, killed it, and I'm not sure if it was one of those strutters that I got, but it was in same general area within, I think it was 2 days after the snow I went and pulled the camera. It was like, so that was, everything's trying to kill turkey.
Mm-hmm.
But in particular in Florida, everything is trying
to
kill everything.
Yeah, they got a bad way to live down there, buddy. And you got guys that are trying to kill a turkey in Florida, which I'm one of them. But if I ever went down to turkey hunt, I wouldn't kill more than one. There's no point in it. Like I wish there was a way I could go down and kill more than one. But ethically, it's not like we are as hunters. We are the wildlife managers.
Yeah,
100%. Doesn't matter if you're on public land or on private land. By you taking something, you are controlling that property's environment.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you talk about buck to doe ratios, that's one of the big ones. You got people that will complain about buck size and how there are not that many bucks, but they'll kill a 4-point or they'll kill a basket 8,
yeah.
But then they pass up all these does.
Well, and they're only killing them for meat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just need meat.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big argument. I'm in favor of a 1 buck limit. I hunt in Ohio. I see deer running around Ohio compared to West Virginia, and then you go down into the southern bow only counties and you see deer down there or pictures down there, and
mm-hmm.
you're like, oh wow, like what could this be?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in favor of 1 buck only, but West Virginia for Better Buck Management, which is a joke of a Facebook group. Not the people who run it, the people who are in it.
Yes.
The people who are in it are hilarious because they're like the same people, on
they go to church on Sunday.
Well, they're the South Park people, right? They took our gerbs. It's like they're like I can't even explain to you how many deer are running around, and they're like, well, now that you've taken that 3rd buck away from me, how am I going to feed my family? And I'm like, brother, you can shoot 7 deer in a year. 7. I'm not going to say that some people are poaching deer, but like I know people who don't turn in deer.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just either and the DNR's made it so easy to turn in deer that
mm-hmm.
how you could not turn in deer, I don't understand. But whatever. If they get caught, they get caught. But I know people who border property on us, they poach deer, like just straight up poach deer. Like they'll just shoot them, cut their head off. But if you need meat for your family, shoot a doe. Shoot a big doe. I mean, well, if I shoot a big doe, that deer might be holding a buck that turns out big. And I'm like, you know, a majority of the time, the reason that you're not seeing big deer is probably because you have these big giant doe groups. And the doe groups are running the bucks out. And then also on top of it, the stress that the doe groups are putting on the deer is restricting their antler growth. Like, it's not solely what they're eating. Well, I'm putting out corn every day. Like, they always got something to eat. That's not it.
You're hitting every single nail on the head that I've been talking about for years.
There's way too many things that are impacting the growth of antlers that people just want to be ignorant to. They don't even care. They don't even care that, you know, if you shoot more does, and, you know, like you, on your property, I don't know how many does run around here, but I'm sure you have an idea of the doe groups that run around here. And I'm sure that you're like, well, you know, I probably ought to take 3. Or, no, there's a good number. Oh, but we had a bunch of twins this year. I probably ought to take 3. Or, I need to shoot 2. I got a buddy who needs to come over and shoot 2. Or your wife needs to shoot a couple. I mean, it's not like that deer is a rare commodity. Like, they're everywhere. Out my road, I can count 40 deer year-round. Just running around.
Yep.
Like, I don't have enough tags to kill the does on the properties that I hunt. I have a 500-acre parcel that me and pretty much one other cousin hunts. I don't have enough tags. But the landowner won't let anybody else other than family come hunt. And, you know, when they come out, they shoot bucks. And then, you know, you got all these does running around. And it's like, well, what do we do? Well, you have to shoot does. You have to shoot does. If you're hungry, shoot a doe. It's going to help your deer herd. The best deer hunting that has been out there in the last probably 10 years was the owner got permits for crop damage because he went down to the county. He got crop damage permits for his cattle because he was saying that they were peeing in the water source and it was giving them some sort of bug, making them sick. The cows were getting sick. He shot 12 deer. I mean, just on site. Boom. And, you know, we took them and we donated them. But the following year, the amount of bucks that were on the property and the size of bucks that were on the property, you know, he's sitting here, he's like, well, I haven't seen this many bucks out here in 10 years.
The math adds up, buddy.
I mean,
you have all those resources there, and over the years, all these doe groups have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and they've eventually drawn out the bucks. Well, the bucks are somewhere, you know, on the perimeter.
Yeah.
They live in a holler over here or a holler over here. Well, at some point in the year, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to come check it out. You know, I rut there. I'm going to go check it out. And they're like, well, there's no does here. Huh. Well, I set up shop. There's a lot of food here. Huh.
Right.
And they're like, well, whatever. And the next thing you know, you got 6 bucks right there that you didn't have before. If you did, you had them for 5 days in November.
Right. And you got bucks like this. You got, you know, these big old gnarly bucks. They don't, a lot of them, you talk to a bunch of people, they're recluses. I mean, they don't want to be around. They're like grumpy old men. They don't want little kids running around screaming, kicking. And, you know, I'm sure you've watched doe groups. I mean, they get rowdy, rambunctious. There's little fawns running around. I mean, they're fighting. The does are fighting. They'll fight each other over food. And I mean, if you have, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, that argument doesn't make sense. Well, you took away food from my family. They didn't lower the limit of deer that you can shoot in a year. They took away a single buck. Personally, I think that the West Virginia DNR should lower it to a 1 buck limit. And I think that they should raise the prices of license and tags for everyone. I think it's the only reasonable way that you could. But, like, the fact that an out-of-state person pays the same amount of money for an additional buck rifle tag as I do is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Absurd. Like,
it really is.
Who made that decision? I'll get fired up about that because, we go to Ohio. Like, I'm not paying the same amount of money as a resident of Ohio, and I shouldn't. I don't live there. But they just waltz on in. They just buy $21 buck tag, and they're like, well, let's go hunting.
Yep.
I mean, it's
a
like
lot of people in the border states are like, well, y'all want to go do some deer drives and have fun?
Yeah.
They literally just pop right across the state line, and then they go and literally shoot 4 points, 5 points.
Yeah,
spikes.
they don't care. They don't care. I mean, phew. I feel like we keep drifting back into deer. We're supposed to be talking about turkeys.
Well, that's because of you, buddy, not me.
Sorry.
I'm wearing a Spring Legion hat, talking about deer.
I get fired up talking about
I mean, I do too.
But you like turkeys better than deer.
I love them both equally. It's just they give me a different feeling, almost.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think I probably wouldn't answer the question. I'd probably tell you I don't answer that question because I don't think that I could probably really give you an answer on what I like more. Between deer, turkeys, ducks, or geese. I mean, even if you take it out that broad, I couldn't tell you what I like more. I mean, there's a completely different feeling that I get when there's a flock of geese flying over and you double cluck at them and they turn and then they start maple leafing. That's a completely different feeling than I get when you have some mallards that are touching tips, dropping through some timber. We hunt Main River, but we have some holes that cut in through timber. And I mean, they're holes. They might mean, but they're dropping in. You get a big buck chasing a doe. I mean, I will get absolutely jacked up. I tell everybody that I hunt with, this is the caliber of deer I want to shoot. If you see me pull up on something that's not that, you need to tell me because I will get absolutely torqued up. And I did this year during gun season. I got absolutely torqued up. A buck dogging 2 does. No disrespect to the animal, but not the caliber that I would enjoy shooting. And turkeys, I mean, you get them drumming, spitting just right up in your face. I mean, I said it, I'll say it again. I mean, I'll say it, I say it again. I got torqued up on the first one I shot last year, and I didn't even give him time to get out of strut. I shot his beard off. I mean, I got plumb fired up. I agree with you. It's completely different feelings, but I probably just even refuse to answer the question because I don't know what I would do without any of them. Mm-hmm. I mean,
if I had to choose, it'd be turkey, but that's just because of how adventurous it is. And plus, you can hunt turkey in the spring and in the fall, whereas you can only hunt deer in the fall.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, let's I got a story that I want you to tell. Earlier in the podcast, about 5 minutes in, you said something about you wanting Tanner to shoot a turkey on the farm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't really necessarily have to be here.
Well, but she had a little mishap last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened with that?
I'd really like to be able to use that footage, and I really don't know where it is. It might be on her laptop, but yeah, there's really not much of a story to it because it's pretty early. But essentially what happened is me and Tanner were going to go turkey hunting here on our property. I knew there were some gobblers that had been around. They'd been, once the leaves really start packing on around here, I swear they come out in the fields more. You don't really see them in the fields a whole lot until like last week of April, first week of May. Somewhere in there you'll start seeing them come in the fields a lot more. With that being said, they start using this field right behind me, which is technically my yard. So over the years that I've lived here, I've been like, it's like a flip switches.
Yeah.
They just they're right here, and I don't know
One
why.
day Luke starts sending videos
Yeah.
of a turkey strutting, gobbling.
It's funny how
out his
that
window.
transitions. But so that day I took Tanner, it was May the 6th last year. I had turkey hunted in Ohio on May the 5th. So driving to and from Ohio, I had to unload my gun. Just keep that in the back of your mind. So me and Tanner go out hunting on May the 6th. And I knew where we needed to get. There was a corner of the field over here. We call it the garden field. There had been turkeys that had come. I don't know really where they were coming from. It seemed like they were coming from everywhere, but they were always coming to this corner into a strut zone. I would pull up from work, and they'd be ever strutting that corner. I don't know what it was about it. They loved that corner last year. I really don't know why. So I told Tanner, I was like, we might not hear anything off the roost. They haven't been gobbling real good on the roost here the last couple of days. I don't know why. Last few days. I said, let's get up there and hunt on the corner and let's just get to the corner before daylight, before they start gobbling. Let's see what they do. Well, they really weren't gobbling too hard on the limb. I think I heard one up here, one over there, one back over there. They were literally all around us. So, what ended up happening was we sit down. I hit the trumpet a lot. They were eating the trumpet alive, and I don't know why. They really were not hitting a diaphragm or a glass. They were mainly hitting the trumpet. So I was hitting that trumpet, and the next thing I know, there's one coming. And it's the one that was roosted right here above the house. He come down through this field right here. Came all the way down, gobbling the whole way past the house, down through the low gap and up the other side. He come down that low gap. I think he paused down there for a while. And then it wasn't long after that I could hear him drumming. I look up in the field, and like you can just see the tip of his fan coming across the field. And he comes all the way up there in the corner, and he's looking. And I told Tanner, get ready, here he comes. And he comes right up to it, and he's standing there, and he's still in full strut. And I was like, well, that's about the most perfect spot she could shoot him in. And I clucked one. Okay. Yeah, so essentially, I called in a hook-spurred turkey. I mean, he had some big old hooks. He's an old gobbler. And I forgot to load my Rete 20 gauge. That's what I was hunting with in Ohio the day before. I unloaded it for travel, and Tanner pulled up on that gobbler the next morning. I called him with a trumpet, a Clay Townsend Osage trumpet, and Tanner's gun went click, and it did not have any shot shells in it at all. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's a bad day.
Like I said, I don't know if I have the footage. I have it somewhere. I know I didn't delete it, but I don't know what we have. Like, I don't know what we'd have to make a complete video, if that makes any sense.
But yeah, I don't think that we would have. From what I've seen, I don't know if we would have enough to make a complete video. But, I mean, still, it's something real that happens. And, I mean, it happens. I'm sure it happens to people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it sucks for her, funny mishap to, you know, rib you about it. But kind of is what it is. It's no different. It's no different than, you know, just straight up missing a turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just happens. So, all right. Moving in, turkey season's 37 days away. What mistake do you see most turkey hunters making?
Well, I would say the number one mistake, I mean, I don't hunt with a whole lot of new people, but, I mean, we're all guilty of it. I think one of the most things is patience. I think a lot of people move right past gobblers that are there that could be workable later on in the day. I think a gobbler shuts up and people move on too quick. I've literally seen people, not with my own eyes, but on a video or something, a turkey will shut up for 10 minutes and they get up and leave. And then the turkey comes in right over their shoulder or something. Like, it happens. I think that's the number. There's a lot of things people do, and there's no absolutes in turkey hunting. If anybody ever tells you there's an absolute in turkey hunting, then they are lying to your face, because there isn't one. Every situation, every day, everything's going to be different. But one mistake, that the most common mistake and the most made mistake overall of all turkey hunters, don't matter who you are, don't matter if you're Dave Owens or Shane Simpson or whoever, it's always been patience. Either having too much of it or having not enough of it.
I think that's good advice. I'm still impatient. I remember the first time I went turkey hunting by myself, the first one, I probably would have called this turkey in. I was sitting in a cattle pasture hidden by some lime. The farmer has lime just piled up everywhere, and I was hidden behind the lime. And I'd set a decoy out. I hunt with decoys. Just, fight me.
Yeah, and also, by the way, the argument I was making earlier was strutter decoys too.
Yeah.
Which I think a Jake decoy can do the same thing. But what I'm saying, like, the mode of usage of people using decoys is like they're just fanning turkeys constantly. We're going to get too much back into it. I just wanted to reiterate, I'm not against decoys completely.
Caleb is against decoys completely. I'm just kidding. But I'd walk past a turkey in the morning, heard him on a place I call the White Oak Flat. And there's a road that runs down the White Oak Flat, down into the cattle pasture. And that turkey's answering me, gobbling. And he started walking away. And I thought, I got to go cut him off. And I got up, and there's a low road that runs underneath the Oak Flat. And I'm running that low road. And he stops gobbling, right? So I'm going that low road, just calling as I'm walking, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And I sneak around and think where I'm going to cut him off on the other side of the road. And he's not there. And I'm like, well, where did he go? And I stand there for probably 10 minutes thinking, well, where did he go? And I hear a gobble. And it's over by the lime pile. So I loop back around and walk up thinking, I'm going to sneak up on him. I'm going to sneak up on him. And
that doesn't work out.
I did not. I did not sneak up on him. The only thing I saw was I popped my head up and he was 100 yards away, and he was in full strut, and he stuck his head up, and he just took off. I mean, another time, 2 years ago, I'm still impatient. 2 years ago, I'd struck a bird, and there's a big ridge that runs in the first pasture, and there's a point that runs out to the left, and there's a knob over on the right. And the knob is just like, it's pretty much surrounded with briars, and it's greenbrier and autumn olive, and it's just thick and like old nasty trees. But it's kind of like a clearing underneath a big cedar. So there's not really a whole lot going on underneath that cedar tree because it blocks everything out. Well, I thought this turkey was out the point to the left, just where he was turning, and it was echoing off the trees back to me. But I mean, he was answering me, I probably called 4 or 5 times, and he just cut me off every time. And I'm thinking, I have to get around, because it kind of L-shapes and then goes. And I was thinking I have to get around and get a decoy staked in the ground. That way, if he pops out, he'll just come over to me. And he'll see that decoy, and he'll just run over. And so I'm sitting there, and I look and I'm crawling. And instead of waiting, I could have told you it was, when I talked to Brian on the phone after, I said it was 20 minutes. I sat there 20 minutes waiting. Luke, it was on the camera 6 minutes. I sat there for 6 minutes. And I swore I sat there. And so I crawled out, and I'm like kind of scooching on my butt, and I look over to my right, and he's just standing there, just, takes off running, flies away. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that say, yeah, be patient. Just be patient. Brian's dad, the first time I ever saw him with a turkey, it was one of the first times I had just met Brian, and his dad had went turkey hunting. I think me and Brian run around turkey hunting or something. And his dad came off the hill with one, and he said that he had sat up and called and sat in the same place for an hour, and he said he hadn't made a call in 45 minutes. He just sat there, called, and he said, and the turkey didn't make a noise. Just walked right up, and he said that he saw its head come out from behind the hill, get up, and he had his gun set on his knee, and he just pulled up and shot.
There are so many there are more turkeys in the woods than people think. Trust me. Like, around here, there are more turkeys in the woods than people like to think that there are, Man, you can go around the hill cutting and yelping and cutting and yelping. You hit a spot cut and yelp, nothing's gone. Don't mean there ain't a turkey down the bottom of the holler or up on the side of the hill across from you. He's just not gobbling. He's just not heard something that's going to make him gobble.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, there's so many turkeys, and I have a lot of experience with that. I mean, think of all the times that, me and Josh have been over there at his lease, and we start on one side of the road. There's nothing gobbling over there, but we're calling over there, right? We made a few calls, some excited calls. The turkeys are over here gobbling. Well, then we move to the other side. Every time a turkey starts gobbling over there.
Every time. You
know why? Because there's a gobbler somewhere within earshot of that, and they're like, there's a hen over there. I might check that out within the next hour or two.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of feed their way there. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm here. Pow! And then they'll gobble to try to gobble the hen back to him.
Yep.
So many people miss that.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I learned that a long, long time ago hunting. Whenever I was a kid, I had probably 3,000 acres at my hands when I was a kid. That's what really shaped me into who I am. Really as a person, but definitely as a hunter. Just running those woods all the time, constantly, 365 days a year. I was doing something, scouting, hunting, fishing, didn't matter. But there'd be so many times that I figured that out the hard way. I would be somewhere calling and nothing would answer, and I'd get up and move. Well, then an hour later, there'd be a turkey gobbling where I was just at. How the people listen to this, how many times has that happened to you? Just think about it. Yeah. I mean, it's asinine.
It happened to me and Josh.
It happens to everybody. Everybody who I've ever talked to about turkey hunting, they're like, oh, well, I just left there, now there's a turkey there. Well, it's because he heard you and he's just coming to check it out.
It happened to me and Josh at his farm a couple times last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, the exact scenario you're talking about. You start up somewhere over around the hang-on, and then you cross the road, and then they start hammering around the hang-on. We went one morning before work, and he was like, we start over there, nothing. We're starting on the gas line plot, and he says, turkey's gobbling over there. He's like, I really don't want to go over there. He said, because I think there's going to be one over here. And he said, but I don't hear anything over there, like over here. Let's cross the road. All right, we cross the road. We go hiking through there.
By the time you make it all the way up.
By the time we make it over there. And, we're coming down the hill because we're going to work, and turkey gobbles. And he looks at me and he goes, turkey gobble. No, it didn't. And he said, yes, it did. And I said, no, it didn't. And I'm just, ignoring it. Like, no, it didn't. We got to go to work. Come on, let's go. And gobbles again. And he goes, gobbled again. No, it didn't. And he said, yes, it did. And I go, all right, if it gobbles one more time, we'll go. He goes, all right, you know, and we're getting ready to drop down into the lower field where we wouldn't be able to hear it. And so I'm like, well, if we hear it, God will get him, we'll go chase it. All right. And so we drop, and we didn't make it down that far. It was probably the next 10 steps. That turkey gobbles again. And I was like, all right, come on. And we ran up there, and we put a good, you know, we had a good chance at that bird. He just ended up catching up with a hen before a hen cut us off. And he ended up meeting up with that hen before he made it around to us. So, probably should have just went to work. But
I've been there too many times.
Yeah.
Rolling at 10:30.
Yeah. Yeah. When they're trying to figure out where you've been. And you're like, I just had a lot going on this morning.
Yep.
So, I got, you know, one or two more. What's your favorite call right now? If you had to take a call into the woods, only one call, what would it be right now?
It's sitting right there beside of you. It's
there's about 50 calls sitting right here.
There might be more than that, but it's a Scooter Peg Sunrise Custom Calls. Nope. It might be that one. Yeah. It's not this exact one, but yeah, because I've got two of them. Two of the exact call. But the other one has a little bit bigger ghost cut on them. I don't think it makes that big of a difference, but I think where the cut is stretched with where the reed comes down, it makes a little difference. But yeah, that's it right there. It's the Chris Walls edition ghost cut, 2.5 reed ghost cut, Scooter Peg Sunrise Custom Calls. That call right there was what Chris would call it's absolutely murder. It's a killer call. It's got a different sound, you know. I can run. There's all kinds of bat wings. There's all kinds of ghost cuts and combo cuts up there, and they all kind of sound pretty much. I won't say the same. I can make different hen sounds with them, but like that's got a very distinct sound. It's got a yo, yo. It's got like you could really get that like yo sound, whereas those are like you can get a lot of rasp with those calls, but that's got more of a yo yo. Like if you hit a box call, you know how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yo.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of that like drawl and rasp into it. It's a good call.
What gun are you using?
Well, I've got a bunch. I got a bunch of them, but the main gun I'm going to be using is a Rite Gordian. I would like to get the barrel cut down and rethreaded, but that's not going to. And I want to get the trigger work done to it, but that's not going to happen this year. And then I've also got a 12 gauge Winchester 1300 NWTF edition that I had to make some well, really, I had to demodify it and get an original tube cap put back on it. And I finally found one. I went through hell and back finding a tube cap for that gun. I don't know why, but I finally got one, and it's got the barrel seated down on it, and it's good to go. So the only thing, I may or may not put an optic on it, but I am going to throw an Indian Creek on it. That way I can take that 12 gauge, and Tanner can use my 20 if we hunt together or something.
What shot are you running through?
Well, there's two different shells I'm toying with, and I don't know which one I'm going to go with. And one is the Apex green leafs, and then some Viper ammunition. I don't remember what the blend of it is. I know they're number 9s, but I don't
TSS, both of them.
Oh yeah.
I think it's hard to move away from TSS.
Oh,
I know that
yeah,
we had talked earlier in the year, and you had mentioned something about maybe shooting lead again, but we were also talking about.
Well, number one shooting lead is just so it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And like, I don't really want to shoot a bird with that gun past with what it has on it right now past 25.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the fact of I want them as close as I can get them too. And that's a nice gun, and brings me back to what gun I'm going to be using. There is a single shot 20 gauge, and I mentioned it earlier in this story or in this podcast that my dad got me that single shot 20 gauge. It don't have a choke on it. It's just a pullback hammer single shot. I think it's called a Harrison and something. It's an H&R. Is what.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm thinking about trying to kill a turkey with it. If I can get some response, some very responsive turkeys here and like workable turkeys, I think I'm gonna take it out, try to shoot one with it, just because, and get it like 20 yards and shoot it.
Yeah.
I patterned it last year, which has just got a regular bead with Remington Nitro turkeys, and I mean it'll kill a turkey dead at 20 yards for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
What about you?
What am I using?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got a Winchester SXP 20 gauge, and I have a SIG Romeo Zero red dot. I think I have a Carlson choke. It's a .665 or 655, one of the two. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's Carlson choke, and then Federal number 9's TSS. Just shoots good.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about getting an Indian Creek or a Jeb's, and Josh told me, he was like, well, you might as well just, before you spend the money, just see if it shoots good.
Oh, for sure.
And so
absolutely.
I was like, all right, I went on Public Land Turkey Hunter, and everybody patterns all their stuff in there, and they absolutely just die for it. And everybody's saying put the Indian Creek with it, or put the Jebs with it, just whatever responds better.
True Lock, Kicks, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of them.
And he said, just see what it does. And I mean, I'm probably not shooting a turkey past 40 yards anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hammered. So that's what I'm going to be shooting.
Yeah, the reason why I'm going to go with the Indian Creek, there's a guy I know, his name's Devin Duncan, and he swears by Indian Creek on those Winchester guns. He's got the 12 and the 20, and man, it's Indian Creek out of those guns are unbelievable. Really good.
That's what Brian's run out of his retail, I think.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
But guys, I think we've been going for over an hour and a half. Actually, I think we're going on 2 hours. But that's probably going to end episode 2. I think in these first couple episodes, we're just trying to, have a couple conversations with the
Get
guys.
a scope on what works and what works smoothly. And
Yeah. So if you're watching or listening, and there's things that you like, things that you don't like, let us know. I don't like the camera angle that we used on the first one. Also, my camera died, so the last half of it, or the last 10 minutes of it, was just Caleb's face, zoomed in entirely too close. But it's a work in progress. But we're trying to let you guys get to know us a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of figure out who we are, where we come from. So, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. We'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow, downloads.
You're only allowed to give a good review, though. No bad reviews.
Yeah. If you have a bad review, just leave 5 stars and give us the bad review. We're going to read them all. I promise you we'll read them all. But, thanks for sticking it out with us. And
Yeah.
Luke, I think we had a pretty good conversation. So
Yeah, I feel like the first half of it, I was like, I don't know, not ready for it for some reason. This is only the second podcast I've ever done. I've been on 2 of them, 2 other ones, but I've actually talked in person in 2 of them,
Yeah.
two of them as well. So 4 different podcasts technically. So,
all right, guys. Well, wrap up episode 2. Thanks for sticking with us. This is Creekside Conversations.
Yep. Thanks, guys.